The students are out in nature today to have a look at how they can interact with it and create art installations and then get information from that. So there's something about the sensory experience in being in nature, and what we're doing is exploring all the different mediums that we can use and how we interact with art and how that informs what's actually happening for them. This subject is all about how we interact with different art mediums and how that experience really informs our clients and the people that we work with. So what we do is actually get into the experiential processes like this, being out in nature and actually experiencing it for themselves, so that they then know what it's like when they go to work with other people in how you use different mediums and how that informs the process.
I've resonated with this pine tree because it reminded me of my childhood and our picnics that we used to go on, and we didn't have phones and stuff like that, so we used to play with found objects anyway. And so it took me back there, and it also made me feel like a cave woman or someone from ancient times preparing something. And so I reinforced this circle with like a bow shape, which is like collecting. This is like a symbol for collecting, bringing people in. And I think this would be a podium from where someone would speak or announce things. And when I go this side, it's almost like it draws me in to come to that spot. Oh, it's my favourite subject, and what has happened is, because I'm an artist and I've been doing things that people want, this course has actually allowed me to be me again, and it's the most beautiful feeling to reconnect with what I love the most and that childhood joy of expressing myself my own way. And so this has allowed that feeling back for me, so yeah.
And what have you learned about how art can inform?
Oh yeah. It's fascinating because as a student I've been listening to myself and how much I can speak about something I've made, so I can just imagine how other people are going to feel when they create something and what they're going to be able to express, because initially don't even know what I'm going to express, and then it just comes out so beautifully because there's so much involved, and it makes you think, it'll make the client think so much more in detail when they make something unconsciously in a way, and then to be asked questions and be able to speak about it allows you to understand yourself a lot more.
Definitely I was drawn to do something in like a circular, it was almost like having a bit of a boundary in a way, but also in a circular, there was something I was just drawn to doing, like a mandala kind of circular shape. And these bits, like the texture of those, the spikiness almost felt like a bit of a, to me it felt like having some sharp edges is good for me, and to create a little bit of a sort of a, I think it's talked to me about creating some good boundaries. And then the next layer in was kind of like the leaves, which to me had more of a floating, fragile sensation, so that was kind of like another layer of myself, I think, that's feeling a little bit vulnerable at the moment. And then in the middle is where I feel all my treasure and my jewels and my richness. So it's almost like a bit of an altar to myself. I found a little skeleton, a head of some kind of creature, animal. And I think that's kind of symbolic in some way to me. I'm not sure how, but but in the middle, it's about all my richness of experience, and I think this process is kind of speaking to me of like, I have everything inside of me that I need. It's about me kind of drawing in on that and really valuing all the experience I have, and about creating a really strong base and foundation for myself. So that's what, I think in the middle, very concentrated, lots of different life experiences, some sort of old, decaying pieces, and then some more fresh, new experiences. And then, in a way, as I've gone through the process, it's also about going out from that, using those bits and pieces out into the world and taking them out into my next step. And there was very much like, I guess, working with that sensory, tactile perception. So the spikiness of the outer boundary, like I said, it sort of identify with me parts of myself that feel like I need a bit of more of a sharper edge, that assertiveness and that strength to come through. And again, the leaves, the paper kind of fragile quality, I guess, spoke to me about that part of myself that feels, can feel vulnerable, as we all can. I think the gathering, the putting things together, the constructing, how things came together started to inform me of like the part in the middle sort of came from constructing lots of bits and pieces together, and that informed me of how there's lots of different parts to oneself, like, I suppose. Learning more about the expressive therapies continuum has been really cool, because it helps to sort of, as I was doing this process, to try and think about, okay, what part of the ETC am I relating to here, or is informing my practice? So that helps to give it a bit of structure. So I was thinking about, things like the symbolic, even some of the affective, like the emotion that was coming up. There was a bit of like anger coming up.
I was feeling embodied into nature while I was making my artwork. I had an underlying very bad pain at the time though from my leg, which was unfortunate, but so I guess my piece kind of resonates how I feel. There's a strength to it in the core in the middle, but it's fracturing out onto the edges with how I was feeling at the time. And I've also got leaves that have just come off the tree that have fallen onto the ground that are still quite green, and also there's the leaves that are at the end that have shriveled up and obviously died on the branches that have fallen down. So there's a transition of colour as well, so there's the darker, richer greens to the faded greens from the leaves as they've actually started to shrivel. So kind of feel a strength and also a weakness in there as well.
So how has the art informed you?
It's informed me that you can do art in nature and it blends in nicely, so it's there, but it doesn't feel alien to its environment because it's all come from the environment where it is. So it feels good to put something in there that's not actually ruining the look of the natural landscape, and it blends in because it's using all the natural things that are in the area, and the colours are all natural as well.
So what about this subject? How's it been with?
I'm loving this subject. I'm loving all the different materials we're using, and even though I've got quite an art background, I've still done things that I haven't actually done before, like the wet felting and different things like that. And lino cutting that I did many years ago. So it's been great to revisit those and learn new techniques as well. So that's been really good.
And how do the techniques inform what you'll do with somebody else?
I guess different techniques will help people in different ways. So with sensory, with the wet felting, and there's different things like that. And then there's the making the collage boxes and things like that. So that's really good because they get to have their own sense of identity and creation of what they're making, and yeah, it can inform them why they're making it as well. So that's really good.
Anything you want to say about Ikon and the course?
Absolutely love it. I was looking at it a couple of years ago when you were down Glenelg, and probably the distance was a bit of an issue for me, so the timing was just perfect. So yeah, absolutely enjoying it so much.